Welcome back to Dippy Does It All, the podcast where curiosity meets chaos. Today, the chaos is deeply personal because it's our Mother's Day special. Joining me is none other than the woman who taught me how to scare a manager into giving a full refund without even raising my voice, and most importantly, kept me out of the circus, which frankly was a real option at one point. She's the original multitasker, the queen of composure, the reason I can read, balance my checkbook, and talk my way out of anything. Please welcome my mom, Jane.
Oh, good God.
Oh, I love it. Welcome, Mom.
Oh, thank you.
She's ready. She's ready, folks.
Yeah, so I'm not ready for this.
We're going to laugh, get a little sentimental, and answer your fabulous questions. Thank you so much to everyone who sent those in. Grab your favorite drink, call your mom, and let's dive into this celebration of maternal magic. So the first question, which I think is really interesting because I've heard some stories, but I'm not sure if what I remember is accurate. Nikki wants to know about your pregnancy. And did you crave things that I love today?
Oh, well, my pregnancy. I don't think I've ever been so sick in my life. Bob and I were going to keep the pregnancy secret, and that lasted 6 weeks. So I was nauseous every day. I threw up 3 to 8 times every day. I couldn't stand the smell of bacon when bacon is one of my favorite foods. I could not eat apples. The only 2 things that I could think of that I actually craved were mashed potatoes with chicken gravy and banana popsicles. Yeah, the pregnancy was difficult. In order to not be sick and have your dad, kind of bark at me in the morning and ask me when I was going to stop doing that, which I replied, when I have this baby, I would get off work at 6 p.m. and I would be in bed by 6:30, and then when I worked at 9, I would get up about 8:15. So I slept through most of the pregnancy because that way I didn't throw up. I was put on medication, which just simply reduced the number of times that I was sick throughout the day. I worked until 2 days before you were born, and that night I remember sitting on the stool at the jewelry store that I was working in, and I took a tape measure and I measured my stomach, and it was 38 inches, and my coworker goes, "Oh, really? That's what my bust measures." And of course I kind of wanted to kill her, but she was also the one that called the hospital the day that you were born to find out if I had delivered. And of course she got yes for an answer, but never asked if I had a boy or a girl. And then she came up on her lunch hour to see you, and we walked down to the nursery, and she's looking at all the little babies in the little tubs, and she turns to me with this look on her face of disbelief, and she says to me, "Her eyes are open." So I'm like, oh my God. So yes, I had to explain to her that you were human and that you weren't a kitten or a puppy, and that yes, your eyes were open. Back to the pregnancy though, because when I say that I got sick and I could get sick anywhere. I was working in a little jewelry kiosk that was directly across from the movie theater, and E.T. had come out in the fall of 82, I think it was. And I think that was the movie because the lines were just super long and the crowd was leaning up against the front cases of my jewelry kiosk, and I felt myself getting sick. So I called over to the jewelry store because the jewelry store had a bathroom right in it, and I asked if one of the girls could come over and relieve me because I knew I was going to be sick, and one was out for dinner and the other was alone and had a customer, but she said that she would come over as soon as she was able to. Well, I couldn't wait. So I took the wastebasket and I threw up in the wastebasket, and then the line moved to the other side of the hallway. So when my coworker was able to come over and relieve me, I ran across the hall. I was going to go right into the bathroom, but I couldn't because I got stopped by a couple who wanted to look at diamond engagement rings. And while I'm waiting on him, the guy asks his soon-to-be fiance, "Do you smell vomit?" And I'm like, yes, that is me.
Well, good thing I was such an angel baby once I came.
Yeah, well, that is true. You were a very easy baby. I'm pretty sure that first night that we brought you home, if we would have just left you alone, you would have slept most of the night, but we kept checking on you to make sure you were still breathing. I know I tell people that you slept through the night when you were less than 2 weeks old, but I think you were actually 17 days old when you slept through the night. But then you were also, I don't remember, it's in your baby book, I don't remember how many months old you were when you were drinking 32 ounces of formula a day. Because I remember talking to your pediatrician and asking the question, should she be having this much formula when she's so little? Because, you were close to doubling your birth weight. And I remember Dr. Wolverton saying, babies aren't like adults. When they're full, they'll stop eating. I'm like, okay. So, hence, I probably did call you Buddha baby a time or two. Yeah, he had little legs that looked like drumsticks, and it is what it is.
That is awesome.
Yeah, well, you were a good baby.
I remember when you would tell me that I would just bring my diaper over to you and lay down.
Well, yes. So I think God knew what my limitations were. So part of that was training. And I did have daycare in the house at that time too. But yes, you did not like to be wet. And that included your diaper, but it also included if you were drinking a cup of water and you got one little drop on your shirt, you had to change that. But you would bring your diaper and you would put it on the floor, and then you would lay it out, and then you would run around and lay down on top of it and just wait for me to change your diaper. And then, of course, since you were willing to do that, after I taped the diaper back up, you would properly dispose of it in the diaper bag.
I love it.
And you also would put yourself down for a nap. So when you were ready for a nap, you would just crawl into your bedroom and rattle the crib, and all we had to do was scoop you up and put you in there until probably you were 3 years old. Something must have happened in the night. I have no idea what it was, but then you refused to sleep in your bed. You would go to sleep in your bed, but that's not where we would find you in the morning. We were living in Fairmont at the time, and the only option for television overnight was a Christian television channel. So in the middle of the night, we would sometimes hear you hop down out of your crib and then hear your footsteps run past the bedroom. And then we had a front entryway where we kept your toys. And we'd hear that door open, and then you would drag some toys out. Then we'd hear the television set go on, and then we would listen to Christian music until we fell back asleep. So in the morning, you would either be on the sofa or on the floor, sometimes on the floor in our bedroom. You did that every night until the night before you started kindergarten. So we had a conversation that evening about starting school the following day, and that you were a big girl now, that you should be able to sleep in your bed the entire night. And that was the first night we were able to get you to sleep in your bed the entire night.
So I listened.
Well, yes, you did. Yes, most of the time you did listen really well. A lot of times I would ask a rhetorical question, which I know is really stupid, and you would have an answer. It was oftentimes hard to keep a straight face. So no, when we took your crib mattress and had a friend of ours make a little bed frame that looked like a water bed, because that's what you wanted, and it had a bookcase on the front of it. And I don't know how many times I told you kids not to sit on the bookcase, but the day that I asked you, how many times do I have to tell you not to sit on that bookcase, you said 36. So, yes.
I love it so much.
And you did break rules, but you always put some thought into it before you actually broke the rule. We had a conversation about not writing on any of the walls, but you did. I didn't notice it right away because I didn't notice it until I was in your bedroom. I was probably vacuuming and I closed the door so that I could vacuum behind the door, and crayon all over the wall behind the door. And when I questioned you about it, you're like, yeah, wow, well, nobody can see it. So, which was true. Yeah, you just put some thought into it.
Cousin Brandy,
Oh, good Lord.
she wanted to know the birth story, which from what I've heard, it was pretty easy.
Well,
All that torture that I put you through.
it was like 10 days before you were born. I had been sick. I hadn't done any laundry. I was actually wearing, your dad's t-shirt, his sweatpants, actually, and his underwear, because I was like totally out of clothes. But I couldn't keep anything down. I couldn't even keep water down. And I did have to go pick him up at the store. And then, we went home because I said, well, I can't go to the hospital. I can't go to the hospital like this because they're going to wonder why this pregnant woman's wearing men's underwear. They would probably question that. But I had gone in. They kept me overnight because I did have some abdominal pain, but that went away, and I was told that, I think you're going to be around for a while, which totally had me depressed. So on the Tuesday before you were born, I went to a Christian women's banquet and ate the meal, got sick, another trip to the hospital, so I got a shot that night so that I could stop vomiting. Wednesday, Mom came down to visit, and she just sat on the sofa and looked at me with really large eyes, because she told me later that with all 5 of us kids, she had never been as large as I was with you. But she went with me to my doctor appointment that day because, of being sick. Dr. Wolverton had said that if I would go into labor, I probably wouldn't realize it because my stomach muscles would be sore, and I was, I think, dilated to 1. That evening, it was about 10 o'clock, I remember the whistle was going off, and I got my bloody show. So I called Dr. Wolverton, and he said, okay, you need to head to the hospital. So I called your dad at the store, and it was a few minutes after 10, and I said, we need to go to the hospital. And he, of course, said, can this wait until I get off of work? And I'm like, no, we have to go to the hospital. So he was home, I think, by 10:30. And in his haste and excitement to get to the hospital, he took my luggage, tossed it in the backseat of the car, and then drove off without me. So he left the driveway, got to the stop sign, must have realized I wasn't in the car, or saw me on the steps looking at him like, what the heck? So he backed up, picked me up. We drove to the hospital, which wasn't all that far from the house, but I remember saying to him that the parking lot was full of potholes. And by the time he got through the lot and parked the car, I looked at him and asked, can we do that again? I think you missed a bump. So a little testy by the time he got in the hospital. And for whatever reason, I still haven't figured this out. They put me in the wheelchair. They took me out to the room. They took my socks. And I don't know why, but I was so concerned about them losing my socks. I guess I had to focus on something. But we had gone to baby classes, and I had been told that when I had a contraction that, the contraction would start on the sides, it would roll to the center and then recede like a wave. I didn't have any of that. I felt a little constipated, and I do remember the name of the nurse that was there, and thank God she was off duty at 11 o'clock, because I don't think she and I would have gotten along very well, because everything I was doing, she was like scolding me and telling me that I couldn't do.
Great.
She's like, get out of the bathroom. You're not having that baby in the bathroom. And I'm like, so, and then Dr. Wolverton got there, and we were having a conversation, and she was telling him what he should be doing, and he was making comments under his breath like, yeah, that's on page 137 of How to Birth a Baby or whatever.
Yeah.
So she left, and then I got wheeled into the delivery room. The next thing I remember is your dad came in, and because I thought, what what is taking so long? All he has to do is put on a gown, put on these little booties, and a mask. So the nurses had taken my eyeglasses away from me because when I pushed, I get pushed with more force with my eyes closed, but they took my eyeglasses and I had wanted to see on the screen. So when Bob came in, I could see the nurses looking at him, but I couldn't quite figure out why because I didn't have my glasses on. So when he got close to me, I realized that instead of tying the bow on his mask at,
Behind,
he had a bow behind each ear. So that was a lot. But you arrived at 12:13, so I was in labor for 2 hours and 13 minutes. And I do remember Dr. Wolverton having to kind of jump to the side because there was so much water behind you that it sounded like someone took a 5-gallon pail of water and just tossed it against the wall.
Oh my.
But
so I just
the
came
delivery, you essentially just fell out. It was because I had said many times after that if I could be 9 months pregnant and just walk into a hospital and have a baby, I would do it in a heartbeat. But carrying another one and being sick every day.
And you thought I was going to be a boy.
Well, of course, I did. And we had 0 names picked out for girls. So when Wolverton said it's a girl, I said, let me see, because I did not believe him. I remember Bob being like totally relieved because his dad died when he was 18 months old, so he was concerned that he wouldn't know how to father a boy and that he'd have, greater success with a girl.
How did you come up with my name?
Actually, the name, there was a girl who had graduated in Ron's high school class named Elisa, and I hadn't heard that name before I had met her, and I liked it, and the only thing that I was, certain about was that I wanted your middle name to be Christine. I have no idea where that came from. I originally wanted your name to be Nina Christine, named after Grandpa Salmonson's mom, but Bob didn't like the name Nina at all. So we settled on Elisa Christine. And of course, when you were born, the names Alyssa and Alicia were super popular. So I guess I unintentionally selected a name that would be mispronounced forever. Just your first name and your last name. So it was always Alyssa Idings, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess we'll go with that.
The funny part about that is it bothers other people way more than it bothers me.
That your name gets mispronounced?
Yeah, because it's just been so often that I don't even think about it. But, for example, when I was with Karen as a nursing student and people would say my name wrong, she'd be like, it's Elisa! And she's like, why don't you correct people? I'm like, because I just don't even hear it anymore.
I don't care.
That's interesting because Dad had me believing that I got my name. I wish you could see my mom's face. I got my name because he hesitated when he was saying Lisa. He said he looked at you and went, how about
Lisa.
Lisa? And you were like, that's perfect. So that's how I thought I got my name. I've been telling people that for years.
Wow.
Turns out she knew one. That's a better story.
Ugh.
Way to go, Dad.
Well, hopefully he's not listening to this.
Well, if he is, he knows. We kind of talked about how I was as a baby because they wanted to know if I was laid back and happy. And I think you said I would go with whoever.
Yeah. Well, and of course, there's been many times throughout the years where I've questioned my parenting skills, but in the early 80s, we used to go to, and I have no idea what the name of the company was, but you could go and you could buy clothing, and I remember buying this little outfit for you. It was a little sweatsuit. I put your name down your leg. And this was before Stranger Danger and all those things too, but some older person, way wiser than I was at the time, made a comment that, are you sure that's a good idea? Because now anybody can just call out her name. And I'm thinking, yeah, tell me what her name is, right? Because they can't pronounce it right. But you would go with anybody, because there were a few times that I took you downtown to the jewelry store that I worked at, and And as customers were leaving, you knew that you had to hold somebody's hand because we had rules about that. So, I mean, you would just grab onto some stranger's hand and you'd be walking to the door with them. It's like, oh, good Lord.
Chris wants to know what one quality or trait that I have that I definitely got from you. And she wanted to make sure we threw in, she thinks that I'm the bomb.com. So that's good.
Okay, well, but see, I haven't observed you with all of your friends, so I'm not sure if they would see this, but I think that we're both stubborn.
Yes. No.
I think we both, okay, this is more than one, but I think we both have a strong sense of what is right and what is wrong.
Yes.
And that for the most, I mean, I think we're really principled in our actions. I do think, though, that, I mean, you know, given the age difference, I mean, you're probably more tactful when you are in a situation, because I know I used to just horrify you when you were a child and we would go somewhere and we would get poor customer service because I would, of course, point that out. But I think you do it in the same way that I kind of did it, where I would kind of like trap them.
Yeah. Make them think about, you're going to sit here and think about what you did. That's what we do.
That's why when I asked Elisa the question, if she ever got in trouble and was arrested and was at the jail, who would she call? And your response, do you remember what it was?
Dad.
Yep. Because you would make me sit there and think about what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is true.
I'd have to stay overnight if I called her.
Yeah.
You know, Lori asked, what parent am I most like? And I was like, my dad, for sure, but only in my outward goofiness. But if I think about who I actually am as a structured person, I'm more you. I like you were saying, I'm more tactful about my decisions. Well,
then why am I constantly apologizing to Jackie? Because, sorry, she gets that from me. So, yeah.
No, I do actually think I'm more like you than originally we would have thought, is the point I'm trying to make.
Well, and I would agree with you on that, because, you know, when your father and I were together and people would ask that question, I would say hands down, she is just like her dad.
Yeah. I was keeping that other part secret, it seems.
Well, no, I think even though I don't think I sheltered you.
No.
Probably didn't shelter you enough. But I mean, it's like, okay, well, this is life. Get used to it, kind of a thing.
I want to throw this bit in because you're saying apologize to Jackie all the time.
Oh, yes.
Jackie, when she was learning about some of these questions and she saw that one, she said one thing that fascinates her the most, and this didn't really come up until I was in school here. She recognizes that I stress organize and you stress clean.
I do.
So she's like, I wonder if this has always been the case for me, or if this is a newer development now that I'm back in school. I feel like I always had organized chaos, if that makes sense.
You were organized. We had to keep the door to your bedroom closed most of the time because it was just too much for me.
Yeah.
A small space, lots of stuff, and everything that you wanted to make use of. But everybody controls what they can control, and because I feel like I am more like Grandpa Salmonson than I am Grandma Salmonson, I started cleaning because then that way I wasn't speaking what was on my mind, which I knew would not have been a good thing. When Dad was upset, everybody knew, and you knew why he was upset. But when Mom got upset, then she was quiet. Mm-hmm. So recognizing that I was more like Dad in that regard, I tried to mimic Mom more. And one of the things that, when I was growing up, and, if Mom was upset, she didn't really say anything to you, which hurt way more than being scolded by Dad. But we didn't have a lot of money when we grew up, and Mom would always say, we may not live in the nicest house, but it could be the cleanest house. Mm-hmm. So I took all of those things and just funneled it into stress cleaning. And I did a lot of it. I remember doing a lot of it. And, things that are important to me, and that is, it's how I'm wired. And a lot of that has to do with Dad. I like organization. I like to be able to find things when I need things. And, I've probably told you many, many times. Okay, there's things I don't understand. You found it to use it, but you can't find it to put it away. If you don't know where it goes, just leave it out and I'll put it away. But I also, when I was a student, I would get really stressed, which you may or may not have remembered, because Bob would often just extend the invitation during finals to take you so that I could have that quiet time to study, because I could get really emotional about it.
Yeah.
And feel like, I don't know. And it wasn't, and you may have a little bit of this, and you too, Jackie, you probably speak to it better, but when you look at my strengths, competition is not very high on there, but when it comes to school, I just didn't want an A. I wanted to be the top A in the class. So I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I know that you saw that because when you were a student, you felt that I would be disappointed if you weren't at that same level. And I'm like, I'm a business student. You're in nursing. That's like apples and oranges. So.
Well, I think that's actually the interesting thing is it didn't really rear its head until this last class that I had. And this last class that I had was a business class. And it's completely different language. And I've just organized everything. I've ripped the game closet apart 2 times. We made so many donations of board games that the second time we went back, the guy said, "Again?" It's only been 8 weeks.
But I don't know if that's so much stress organizing as avoidance behavior. That's how I would look at that.
It could
but
be.
Yet you're productive.
Yeah.
And I exhibit those traits like every day. Like if I want to watch television, I have to do something with my hands and make something, because then I don't feel like I'm just sitting there watching television.
Yeah. No, for sure. Tina had all those goofy questions you were talking about when you showed up. And she wants to know,
oh Lord,
on a scale of 1 to you're grounded, how much do you regret teaching me how to talk?
And we may not be in agreement on this, because
here, I'm gonna put behind my back what I would say for a number. That way, I'm not changing it.
Okay. I'm gonna go with a 3. How far apart are we?
I meant to do this. I was gonna say a 3.
Yeah, because
most of the time we've had good conversations.
Well, and even when you were little and first learning to talk, I can really only think of one time that comes. Well, actually,
is when the neighbor lady came over?
No, well, no, there's 2 times. The first time though was you were 2.5 years old maybe, and we were in church, and I used to take you down front, because if you could see what was going on, you behaved better. Well, you were misbehaving, and we were going to a church at the time that if children made noise, pastor would stop speaking until the child was removed from the sanctuary. So you were acting up and you weren't settling down, so Bob picked you up to carry you out into the narthex, and all the way from the front of the church to the narthex, all you said was, "Don't spank my butt, don't spank my butt." So I'm thinking, great, now everybody thinks we're child abusers.
I was thinking, the reason I picked a 3,
neighbor lady?
I was thinking when the neighbor lady picked all her beautiful vegetables from her garden, and I answered the door, and then I yelled down the stairs, "Mom, the old bag from next door is here."
Yes. And my first thought hearing that was, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
Because I knew where you got it.
Yeah.
So I had 14 steps to climb and to think of an explanation. And seriously, when I went to have my foot surgery, she was the nurse that got me ready pre-surgery.
Oh, no.
And she poked me for some blood, and she said to me, you're not going to want to look at this. And she was right. Because when I looked down, there was like blood all over the top of the bed. And I'm thinking, this is payback for Elisa calling you an old bag. And she probably heard Bob say like a goose could use her underwear for a nest. Because she used to hang them on the line.
Oh, no.
But yeah, get me in trouble with the neighbor. What do you say to that? Amy, what do you say?
I don't really know.
But
oh, she thought you had an old bag in your hand.
But, I mean, it was some of the things that you say when you were little and you're first learning to speak. I mean, it's just adorable, right? And, a lot of times you made a lot of sense, which could sometimes be particularly annoying. Like the stick in the wire, right? I mean, you were right,
yeah.
But
that's everybody's favorite story. Should we just tell it?
Oh, but see,
because they hear it from my retelling of it, and I think it's great when you tell it. Only a couple times parents came to the door.
Yeah, if someone came to the door today, I would never have answered it, but back then I did.
Okay, I'll set the scene.
Yeah,
I'm outside playing with the neighbor kids, and there was this kid named Brad, and he was bullying us, and I was a year or two older than most of the neighbor boys that we were playing with. And I wasn't having this bullying. And I told Brad, you better get up on out of here. I'm going to hit you with this. But I had a stick in my hand. And he didn't leave. And so I went to hit him with it because we have consequences. I told you I was going to hit you if you didn't leave, and you didn't leave. I mean, he may have been riding his bike away, and I kind of ran after him. But either way, we're going to follow through.
Yeah.
So I whipped him in the back. Then his mom comes to the door.
I thought it was his dad.
Or whoever.
I think it was his dad who came to the door and said that you guys had been playing in that open field by the blue house, and that my daughter, you, hit his son with a wire. And and you said,
it wasn't a wire, it was a stick.
And I warned him first.
Yeah.
To which I probably went, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite story is with
when I tried
Scooter.
Oh, I thought when I tried to pack.
No, well, that one's a good one too. But when Scooter and his dad came over to the house, and I opened the door, and I'm like, "Hey, I love your haircut," because it's a little tiny.
Yeah,
it was so adorable. And Ed's looking at me, and not my husband Ed, but the neighbor Ed, and he's like, Elisa cut his hair. And I'm like, okay. Would you like her to apologize to him? And he says nothing. And I said, would you like me to pay for the haircut? And he says nothing. And then I said, would you like me to get a scissors so he can cut Elisa's hair? Then I don't really think he responded.
What I would say, though, is he wore that hairstyle for the next 10 years. Yeah. He loved it.
Well, yeah.
And he asked me to do it too. He was like, my hair is hot.
Well, at least when you cut your own hair, you tipped your head to the side, you cut everything underneath. But when you were upright,
you couldn't see it.
You couldn't see where you would cut your hair.
You're right. I was clever. All
kids cut their hair, I think. I know I cut my hair several times, but
I was really clever.
You did put thought into your mischievousness.
There's 3 questions of people wanting to know if I got in trouble, something funny I got in trouble for, if my humor got me in trouble. I can't really recall getting in that much trouble. Because I think that I would just own up to whatever it was.
Well, you did. I think the person who got into the most trouble
my dad.
Was your dad.
Yeah.
Because we were not on the same page at all when it came to parenting. And what used to really irritate me would be the toys. Because he would tell you, pick up the toys. And then if you didn't pick up your toys, then he would threaten to throw them out. And then he would follow through and he'd throw them out. And then you would just get a bunch of new toys. So I was firmly convinced that every so often you just intentionally refuse to pick up your toys.
To get new toys.
Get new toys.
Most definitely.
But I can't really think of anything I know I've been mad at you, but I would probably be more irritated, I think, than just angry. But I have my opinion, and I do believe that you took me seriously, because I do remember when Ed and Megan first moved in after Ed and I got married, and I went to the clothes shoot to yell down that it was time for dinner, and I heard you having a conversation with Megan, and you said, no, if my mom, don't ever lie to my mom, because if she catches you lying, you're going to be in big trouble. And if she says no television for 2 weeks, she means 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So even if you're good, don't go to her after a week, because she's not going to let you watch television for 2 weeks. And I'm thinking, although I don't know this for sure because I haven't had that conversation for Megan, but I do recall a time where she was at a dance, and Ed and I went to pick her up, and she was not at the meeting location at the specified time. So we waited and we waited and waited, and I'm like, well, should I just go in and look for her? And he goes, no, we'll give her a few more minutes. Well, she shows up, and she's all sweaty.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, she's obviously not at the dance. I mean, she didn't even come out from the school. So Ed asked her, where were you, Megan? She goes, at the dance. Where were you? At the dance. Where were you? At the dance. And I couldn't stand it. It just drove me crazy. So I said, Megan, where were you? We were at the skate park.
It's true, though.
But
and I think that's why I don't remember really getting in trouble, because if I made a mistake, we would talk it through. You know, it wasn't like trying to pull wool over your eyes or anything like that.
yeah, I can't. I mean, and if I were, and it wasn't mad, but I mean, like when you turned 16 years old and did not want your driver's license, I was like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And for me, you not having a driver's license was, and quite frankly, was an inconvenience because I worked out of town and you were playing hockey at the time. When you had an away game, I'd set the alarm for like 11:45 so I could get up and pick you up at the arena, because I couldn't let you walk home, even though it was only 5 blocks away.
Yeah.
But it's like, please get your driver's license. But you were always responsible. In fact, probably at sometimes more responsible than I was. But because I do remember, because we usually only had one television set, and it was downstairs in the basement. And I know Bob and I were divorced. It was after '94, but at one of the store picnics, I won a television set, which I put in my bedroom. You probably remember what television program I was watching. I don't remember. I think it was a Big Brother one, but I'm not sure. But you came into my room, so you were, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, and you're like, Mom, I don't think you should be watching this program. Like, well, I'm the adult here, so go away.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were.
People are probably like, what the heck? She didn't want her driver's license? I was terrified of being independent, truthfully. I loved riding the bus. I didn't want to drive in the winter because I had a lot of friends on the bus.
Well, and I thought maybe you didn't want your driver's license because you didn't want me to help you behind the wheel, which would have been a good plan, because I would not be good helping you behind the wheel.
Could have been that too.
Because I remember the one time that I was with you, I made the comment, Elisa, I could have turned 5 or 6 times. The next time I rode with you, I'm like, whoa, I probably would have waited. And then the other, you wouldn't even go 1 mile over the speed limit. And I thought to myself, oh my God, we are a blood clot. There are going to be like people behind us who are going to be like very unhappy because they're all speeding, but you're at 30 miles an hour.
Well, the rules were the rules.
Oh, I know. I can think now.
Okay.
There was a 2-week period where I was mad at you.
Okay.
And that was when you first started playing hockey, and you were with all of the rich kids.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you didn't think that you could, I don't have to make my bed. I don't have to do dishes. I don't have to do chores. I don't have to do anything. Why don't we have a maid? And I'm like, oh, because I don't have any money. But so I do remember telling you that you needed to change your behavior or you would not get another dime from me for hockey. And then all that bad stuff went away.
That is true. It was a toxic environment. Ugh. It was really toxic. But you fixed that. Yeah,
and you didn't want to drive the Toru. It wasn't good enough. All these kids are turning 16 and getting brand new cars, and you're driving a 19.
But you know what?
80. What were you?
89.
89 Taurus missing an S.
But I love that thing, actually. I loved it. And
it was hideous looking.
It had the...
But it was nice riding.
1989, Ford had the bad paint, the year of the bad paint, and it was all chipping off.
It wasn't the paint, it was that finish that goes over the paint.
Clear coat or whatever?
Yes, that's what it was.
So the paint was chipping, clear coat, whatever. Leather seats, had a great white shark at the back window eating a hockey puck with my number on it. It was great. I loved it. And I plugged in the CD player with the cassette, all the mixtapes. Skip every time you did a bump.
Yeah, well.
Tina wants to know, who was more dramatic as a teenager, me or you?
I never really perceived you to be as dramatic in that if something didn't go you didn't have a lot of friends that were girls, which helped a lot in that department. But if something didn't go your way, you would just go off on your own, or you might pout.
Yeah.
Me, when I was a teenager, I was really argumentative, but I don't know that there was a lot of drama. But if I had to pick between the two of us, I would say it would have been me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't recall a lot of drama either because I had a lot of acquaintances, I would say, at school. I talked to everybody, basically, in our class. But outside of school, there was only a few people I talked to, and it was mostly boys.
Yeah.
And there's just no drama there.
Right.
Today's episode is sponsored by Invisible Hamster Insurance. Ever worry your imaginary pets aren't properly covered? With Invisible Hamster Insurance, you can rest easy knowing your non-existent furry friends are protected from invisible injuries, costly vet bills, and spontaneous hamster hauntings. Don't leave your translucent companions unprotected. Sign up today and get a free complimentary air cage. Use code DIPPYDIDIT at checkout to receive absolutely nothing, because they're invisible.
Warning, may cause excessive squeaking, running wheels that never stop, and unexplainable hamster-shaped dents in the furniture. In the event of an invisible hamster incident, filing a claim will be extremely difficult, as we cannot verify the hamster's existence. If your invisible hamster goes missing, we cannot be held responsible for either its absence or your inability to find it. For the emotionally distressed, we offer a variety of non-visible, non-existent animals. Please inquire about our invisible guinea pig and phantom rabbit packages.
Karen asked a bunch of, I would guess I'd call them rapid-fire questions. Have I always been into Legos? Or is it more of a thing since I've become an adult?
When you were, I would say more as an adult. You may have had some as a child, but I remember you more into like He-Man and G.I. Joes and some of those things. But
I was thinking, I don't think I really got a whole lot of Lego sets till later. Like I was 14, 15. Because I know we were at Target, Dad and I, and there was a couple sets that, because we were collecting all these Matchbox cars, you know?
Yeah.
And they came out with a car wash and a car garage Lego set and a hot rod store or whatever. So I wanted to get those. And Dad was saying, well, I don't have any money, but he didn't want the sets to sell out. He was worried about that. So he bought all of them. And when we got to the front.
That's why we had no money.
I know. But we got to the front and it's scanned as $1. And it was supposed to be $80.
Well, of course.
And Dad looked at me like, don't you say anything. And so he pays for it. I think the whole bill was like $32 or something. And we leave, and he looks at me and he goes, now, this isn't our fault because it's how it's scanned. I was like, okay.
It's like retail karma.
Yeah.
Well,
he's like, this makes up for the other times we've been screwed. It's so funny.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say I didn't have a ton of Lego sets, but what really sparked it was when they started getting the licensing. Because then you have the Simpsons Quickie Mart, the Simpsons house, you got all the different Star Wars, Friends, Jurassic Park. They didn't have that stuff when we were kids. At least I don't recall. They were more generic sets.
Yeah, see, I don't even really remember you having Legos because I don't remember stepping on any, and I'm pretty sure if you had them, I would have stepped on them.
They're probably all at Dad's apartment.
Yeah, it could be.
On Bell Avenue.
That could be.
Because
don't tell Mom.
As I mentioned in the next episode that's coming out, my dad just recently paid off that debt from buying me all that crap. So it was probably all at his place. You told me that. She wants to also know about my unique shoes. Because I'm known for them now, but did I have several pairs of shoes as a kid, or were any of them unique?
Well,
I know you've talked about that I was an eclectic dresser.
Oh my God. It's just like, I just gave up, quite honestly. So once you were old enough to dress yourself, it was always interesting to see what you would wear because you didn't care. You just didn't care. I'm wearing this. If kids make fun of me, I don't care. I'm comfortable. And I'm thinking, oh my God, those pants are 6 inches too short, or that sweats are safety yellow. I don't remember shoes though. The only thing I remember about you and shoes is that you wanted a pair of Birkenstocks. And because all the kids are wearing them, this is a trend. Everybody's wearing it. And I'm like, okay, these shoes are ugly and they're $130, and I don't spend $130 on myself. Therefore, I'm not spending $130 on you. But you liked what you liked, and if no one else liked it, you really didn't care. I have no idea when you started with all of the shoes.
Yeah,
but I've seen them. So
I think I would also say that came with the licensing, because Adidas got hooked up with the Simpsons as well. So of course I had to have all of them, And
the only, I know,
I'm wearing a turtle shirt right now. So I guess it's just been me the whole time.
I know. Because who was it? Which friend of yours was it that when I gave you that little camel Coach crossbody bag, she said, oh, your mom really wanted a girl.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is true.
Yeah.
But no, you were just always fiercely independent when it came to what you wore. The only article of clothing that I could think of that, I mean, I guess I would kind of consider it a trend, but maybe not
Abercrombie?
So much. No, well, not unless you can buy that Charlotte Hornets jacket there. But there was that one year where all the kids had
the starter jacket.
Jacket, and you wanted one, which of course you paired with that Jester's hat.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well. It's like, whatever.
Yeah, I literally had a huge Jester's winter hat.
And I firmly believe that the hat that you picked out when you were 3 that said for ages 7 to 14 that I told you you will wear this until you were 14, I think you intentionally lost it so you could get that Jester's hat.
I did wear it for quite a few years.
You did.
Jackie was just scanning in my baby photos, and callback, I saw that red sweatsuit with my name on the leg, and also that hat, and it's all the way down to my neck. And Jackie goes, oh, there's that hat that you were supposed to wear.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another good one, because I don't know the answer to this. I have many nicknames, such as Dippy, which is a newer one. How many have I had in my lifetime? And what are or were they?
The only 2 that I can think of are Pumpkin Doodles. So my nickname that was given to me by Grandpa Salmonson was Pumpkin, so we made you Pumpkin Doodles. And then your other one was Ubu, and that came from the sign-off on the television with the black lab, sit, Ubu, sit. So that's where
and
Ubu
I was
came
going
from.
up the steps or something, and I turned around, sat down. Is that how that happened? Because that's what Dad told me happened.
No. I wonder why we're not together. No. The only story that I remember about you on the staircase is our poor parenting decision to get HBO and having a television downstairs where we couldn't monitor what you were watching all of the time. So that's when we discovered that we were watching HBO when we were at Pizza Hut, and you said, there's Jodie Foster. I'm like, what? There's Jodie Foster. And I'm like, how do you know who Jodie Foster is? Well, she was in that movie where she was in the pool hall and the guys had her on the pool table. And I'm like, what? You watched The Accused? So that's how we found out you were watching HBO. And when there was another time where we were downstairs, we were watching a movie on HBO. You were supposed to be in bed. I know it was a comedy, but it was probably foul language, whatever. And I heard you giggle. And you were sitting on the steps. All we could see was your feet, so you must have been crouched down to see the TV. And so that if we would turn around, I think you thought that we wouldn't be able to see you at all. But that's how you got busted for that. But if you had other nicknames, I I don't
The only
really
other thing
remember
I
that
can
one.
remember is
That's what we called you.
if it wasn't a play on my name, because I had a lot of plays on my name, like Elise,
Yeah.
Alicia, Angel. Well,
Did you make that one up?
well, they called me that once at the doctor. Angel Idings, and then we sat there a bunch, and I was like, Dad, they're definitely calling me. There's no other Idings here. And he's like, well, they said Angel. So we went up.
Whatever.
The nurse were like, did you mean Elisa? And she goes, oh, I guess that's what that says.
Great, a nurse who can't read.
The thing I can think of is Big Shooter. They called me that in hockey, even though I didn't score that many goals.
Wait,
so
you couldn't see because you didn't have contact lenses.
I know. What was my favorite superhero? He-Man and that stinky swamp.
The one that whatever
Swamp
that
Man
character
guy.
was, yeah.
Seaman, I think they called him.
I don't know. I just know I knocked a display over at the toy store when you wanted that. How about this little baby doll? You want that thing that smells. Yes. All right. Yeah, you weren't any toy that was popular for girls. You had zero interest in it. I don't know how much money we wasted trying
Trying to get me to like it.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. No, you weren't interested in.
She wanted to know what my favorite one is now, but it's too complicated because what universe are you talking? Are you talking Marvel? Are you talking DC? It's too complicated. So I wouldn't ask you that because I don't even know. Yeah. I'd probably say Batman.
Why?
But because Batman is cool. He's got cool cars and motorcycles, and he's a vigilante, and he feels like he could really exist in society. Versus, like, I like the Ninja Turtles and Captain America, but you just don't see that. Would that really actually be a person in real life? And I know that's not the point of a superhero, but I like to think that it could happen, you know? But too complicated of a question. I wouldn't pin that on you.
Well, I wouldn't answer.
Then here's two questions that are basically the same. We know kids say the darndest thing. What was the most hilarious thing that I said when I was little? Or on the flip of that, they've heard a lot of stories about me being brutally honest. Did I ever do something that caught you off guard with what I said? Besides the old bag from next door is here.
Yeah, well, that was traumatic for me. Well, the one story that I tell often about when you were little is you always paid attention to what was being said to you. And that was never more evident than when you would ask to go to the park. Because my response to you must have been maybe later.
Yeah.
Because you came to me one day and asked, after later, can we go to the park? So you had put those two things together.
I was like, I'm going to get on top of this. I'm going to...
After later, can we go to the park? I'm sure there were many, many things that I probably went, oh. Nothing comes,
well, and it's hard
comes to mind.
when you're trying to go back, 30 years.
Because I think, one of the beauties of aging is that you forget a lot of the things that were bad that had happened or embarrassing, you forget a lot of those things and you just tend to remember the
fond things.
Yeah, the positive, fun things that had happened.
I liked this question. Dennis wants to know the weirdest habit or thing that I was really into as a child. And this is his quote. I think it would be neat to hear from your point of view of how she became obsessed with Fraggle Rock or something. Something goofy that I was into. How about the one when you took me to the store and you said, you can have anything you want in this store.
Oh my God, that pickle?
Yeah, and I came back with a $1 pickle.
Yeah, it was with a cape. He had orange
shoes or something.
And
yeah,
big old hands. I was hoping you'd go for what was the doll?
Cabbage Patch.
Cabbage Patch doll, because you could have bought it for $20 then, but no, you didn't want it then. You wanted it when they were $300, which you didn't get when it was that much. But yeah, Mr. Pickle, $1 at Woolworths. But also, that happened one Easter too, where I was unable to find a dress for you and I had to work, so I sent you and your dad shopping. And it was late, because day before Easter, and I told Bob, I said, I don't care what you spend, just find a dress for her to wear for Easter Sunday. You guys did, and I think you spent $3 at Woolworth for this orange dress with white polka dots and that. I don't even know how you wore that dress because it was rough like gunny sack.
Yeah.
So at church, while all the little girls are walking down the aisle in their little pastel colored dresses, here you come in your orange dress. Which one's yours? The one in the orange. Easy to identify because everyone else is in pink or lavender.
For sure.
I don't know where your obsession have started. I don't know.
Probably from Dad.
Well, yeah,
'Cause
he'd
we
take
would
you
go to-
shopping, he'd buy you everything.
We'd go to all the stores looking for the next number in the line of Hot Wheels or whatever it was that was coming out.
He was a collector, and there were things that I collected, so I suppose it was probably just a natural
Yeah.
progression for you to want to collect things as well.
Yeah. I would think so too. Is there a trend that I got into that you questioned your parenting?
I don't remember you being on any trend other than that Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, I don't either. I actually don't remember being a trend hopper.
No, and it is, and quite honestly, if you probably would have gotten on one, I probably would have bought into it because you just always did your own thing.
Yeah.
So,
If I was the flavor of ice cream.
oh Lord, it'd be bourbon. Bourbon with gummy bears in it or something.
Dippy's bourbon sour gummy cream.
I don't know what it would be.
Oh, it sounds terrible. But it'd probably be really good.
Bourbon maple bacon ice. It's something.
Oh yeah, that would be a good
probably
one.
Shaped like it would be a sandwich shaped like a Lego.
That's good. What celebrity would play you in a movie?
It would be Glenn Close, probably.
Oh, I like that one. Who would play me?
Oh, I can't think of it. Is it Kate McKinnon, the one
Oh,
who's
yes.
weird Barbie?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she could pull you off, especially in some of the skits I've seen her on in SNL.
Yeah.
I think she could do you.
I would agree. I love that pick. That's a good pick. And you knew this question was coming. Kate's question.
Okay, who's Kate? Which one?
Kate wanted to know if any of the neighbor dogs pooped in our
Oh.
yard, and what would you do if they did?
Okay. I don't remember any of the neighbor dogs pooping in our yard, but if they did, I would return it to the owner.
Yeah.
The dog owner.
Why do people think that's crazy?
I don't know.
Especially if you put it in a lavender scented bag. That's a really nice way to do it.
I don't know that I would do that. I'd probably just, I don't know. Depends on where they lived. I might just flip it in their yard.
All right. So these are some questions that I put together based on some of my favorite stories that you tell. I'm just curious, how many years did you have to conduct underwear checks? Was this a short problem or was this a long problem?
Well, no, I only had to do it from 85 to 89.
Do you want to hear Jackie's theory on that? Why I wouldn't wear underwear? She thinks that it was probably the color of it or something. Or if it had a princess on it, she's like, you didn't want that. You'd want Ninja Turtle underwear.
Well, and
It's a great theory.
right. Or the fabric that it was made out of.
Yeah.
Yeah, no Dukes of Hazzard for you. So.
My favorite story about it, though, is when you said we were going to Grandma's.
Oh, my God.
And I had got myself dressed. And you mentioned that when I was walking to the car or whatever, that something just looked off.
Yeah.
And then,
And then I take you to the grocery store.
yeah,
And
yeah, we go
put you
everywhere.
in the car, and I'm like 10 miles south of Hutchinson, and I'm looking in the rear view mirror, and you had slid down in your car seat, and I'm looking at you going, oh my God, she has both legs through one leg hole, and she doesn't have any underwear. So we stopped in Hutchinson, and I had to find a payphone to call my parents to let them know that we would be detained because I had to go to Shopko to buy you underwear. Like, what? And you would get so mad because in the morning you would come out of your bedroom ready to go, and I'd ask, do you have underwear? And you go, ah. You'd turn around and you march back in your bedroom.
It's like I thought if you didn't ask me, I'd be in the clear.
Yeah,
What was the most memorable birthday party you planned for me?
Perhaps the one that didn't happen.
Because of meningitis?
Well, no, not that one.
Oh.
It would have been 1985. We had a snowstorm. on your birthday. So we had sent out invitations. We had all these RSVPs. We had a snowstorm. That party did not happen. But then the next year when we had your birthday party, that was the year that Debbie, your Aunt Debbie, my sister, not sister-in-law, Debbie, sent you a birthday card. Happy second birthday. So for 2 years in a row. So that one was pretty memorable. But I know the one that you were talking about, the meningitis party, where you had the slumber party, and I know that you were kind of disappointed because a lot of parents wouldn't let their kids come over. But yeah, many interesting things happened that night.
I know. I was exactly what I was thinking of is when that one friend was licking all the salt off the pretzels.
Every single pretzel, Rod. She licked the salt off. She drank the juice out of the pickle jars and left the pickles. That's the only time I can remember that you and I watched a movie where you sat on my lap. And the only reason you wanted to sit on my lap was because Barb Lindsay's daughter wanted to sit next to me. So, and because here I'm thinking, oh good, we'll put in The Lion King and I have a couple hours, I can read, it'll be great. And that wasn't the case. And then Shaniqua was the little girl, right?
Yeah.
So, well, and then I was awakened in the middle of the night.
Because we told one of the girls that my grandma was in the cedar chest and it freaked her out.
Yep.
And the thing is, let me set the stage of this girl. This girl was tall, big, tough girl. Who would have thought she'd be scared?
Okay, well, that's your version. But we had her calm down. She was calmed down, and then she agreed to stay. But at like 5:15, I hear the front door open, and she's leaving because she called her mom to have her mom come pick her up. Then I went back to bed, and about 8 o'clock I woke up and I was just roasting. So I'm like, what is happening? So I looked at the thermostat and it was cranked all the way to like as high as it would go. Bathroom door was partially open and I pushed the door open and Shanique was in the bathtub. And, I mean, the tub was, you couldn't put any more water in it. She's eating a bowl of cereal because she was cold, so she turned the heat up and took a bath to warm up. And then remember, she refused to leave with her mom.
Yeah.
Because she didn't like the socks her mom packed.
Yeah.
So, and I offered to give her a pair of socks, but her mom wouldn't take them. So,
what was your favorite prank that you played on me? I know. I have one.
Did I play pranks on you?
Yeah. So, what I have in mind is when
you were a child?
Well, I don't know how old I was. You were having that movie club, and we had watched Candyman.
Oh my God.
And we came back to the house, and I'm on the toilet.
You're brushing your teeth. You were standing in front of the mirror.
I remember peeing on the floor.
But how would I come up behind you if you were on the toilet? I'd stood behind you and went, Candyman, Candyman, Candyman.
I don't know. All I know is I have memories of peeing on the floor.
Yeah.
That was frightening.
Well, sorry.
That's what I was thinking.
I would do it again today. So I learned nothing from traumatizing you. See, it was just a movie. He never showed up. So,
what was my first movie? Speaking of movies.
Ghostbusters? In a movie theater, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
We didn't have a sitter, so we brought you with. Movie that we took you with because we didn't have a sitter and we brought you with got me in trouble. That was Kindergarten Cop. Because I got a telephone call from your teacher. Because apparently you shared the line, boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. So, I mean, what can I say? Yes, we didn't have a sitter. We took her to the movie. It was a line from the movie. I'm so sorry. Are 28 parents going to be calling me no too? So.
It's interesting because nowadays they teach kids that. So it's weird that it was taboo back then.
Well, and speaking of that, because, I was prepared to have a conversation with you about that. So here I am. I ordered this book on how to talk to your child about sex, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what grade you were in, but you were young, certainly much younger than the 5th grade, which is, I think, when we learned about it. So I'm like, Elisa, we need to have a conversation about this. And you're like, yeah, I already know about that, Mom. And you just walked off. So I'm thinking, well, good. My job here is done. My face won't need to turn red.
What was your most memorable impromptu concert? Because I know I would just wait on bated breath for you to get home so I could throw you a concert or sing you a song.
What would be the Mother's Day one? When you and Scooter played air guitar and sang the Runaway Train was one song, and the other one was the Mariah Carey song. But which one was it? Hero?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys were in the living room and you had your little air guitars out. And
We practiced that left and right.
That was just adorable.
It's so good.
Of course, I was so poor I didn't have a camera, so there's no video footage of that, where today that would be all over the internet probably.
Yeah. Well, if you think about if we would have had the ability to have phones that had cameras at that age, can you imagine what would have existed of me on the internet? I can't even imagine what would have all been on there.
I know I personally have said I did all my stupid stuff before
Yeah.
camera phones. Well, I still do stupid stuff, but not stupid stuff that I want on video.
Yeah.
To be shared.
Is Buffalo Wild Wings amazing?
It is not. That's your question.
Yeah.
Food is delicious. It is not amazing.
We needed the audience to know, because that is something that comes up pretty regularly, and I have to let the people know they're wrong. Food is delicious. I remember we had about a 15-minute discussion on this. Just so
And
that
Buffalo Wild Wings being amazing. Come on.
Yeah. Just so that people know, God's miracles are amazing.
Yeah.
Food is delicious. Yeah. That was my lesson. Oh, this is a really good one.
Unless you would say it this way. I am amazed that Elisa prepared this dish that was delicious. That would be okay.
What was going through your head
Oh, God.
when I was telling your friend Gwen it was going to hurt for her to have a baby while she was very pregnant?
Do they know the whole story of this, though?
No.
Okay. So you need a point of reference for this, because as I said earlier, I mean, there's some things I probably should have shielded you from, and there are times I question my parenting skills. But when my sister-in-law Debbie had Eric, they filmed it, and they sent us the VHS tape of it. And yes, I did let Elisa watch it. I can hear people groaning now. But so Kelsey was born August 8th. So probably a couple weeks before that, Gwen and her husband Dave came over to our house for dinner. And during dinner, Elisa was watching television. She put this tape in. So when she watched this tape, she would lie on the floor with her feet up, one foot on each side of the television screen, and she would watch this video of Debbie giving birth to Eric, although I don't really think you could see anything. You just knew that you were in the delivery room. So then Elisa, she does go over to Gwen and tells her how it's going to hurt. And she was encouraging Gwen to watch the tape with her. Gwen declined that invitation, but
I think she said I grabbed a book too.
Well, yeah, but yes, you probably did. What to Know When You're Expecting was probably the book. I think that was also the year that you asked for a PDR for Christmas. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but you want what? A physician's desk reference? You can't even read, but okay. So, yeah.
That
Questionable.
Is so great.
Choice. And Gwen still talks about that today. Hey, remember when you invited us over for dinner? And
yeah, I know
Lisa
she
puts
does.
us in? Gotta watch this part. I'm on drugs.
What was your thought on what you thought I was going to do for a career growing up? Because I feel like pretty much after I was 8-ish, I was in the medical field.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little earlier, but I don't know.
No, I always knew that you would do something in the medical field. But actually, I think the funniest thing about that's tangentially related to that is that you had made the comment, and you were a student at the time in the nursing program, and you had said that, you know what, we were talking about, getting married, whatever, in future, and you said, if I don't find somebody who shares my religious convictions, I'll just marry a doctor. So I'm like, well, it turns out you did, but and that was also another thing that things always just seem to work out for you. You usually just had plan A. There wasn't always a plan B.
Yeah.
And that always kind of took me by surprise that you don't have a backup plan? So much confidence going into the decisions that you didn't even feel that you needed a backup plan.
Brandy has some good ones coming at you here. Any advice for other mothers, new or in the deep trenches? Just general advice.
And I personally don't think that that's a fair question. And what I mean by that is that the world that I lived in when I was raising you no longer exists.
Yeah.
Top of mind, the first thing I would say is keep the electronics out of those children's hands, because I'm a firm believer that cell phones are, leading us to be an antisocial society. No one wants to pick up the phone and call. They want to text. That interaction piece is gone. And I don't think if I had to do it over again, I probably would not have worked or gone back to work as soon as I did. I probably would have waited until you were in first grade and then gone for most of the day, because I think that those first 5 years, those foundational years are so important. I knew that it was okay for me to return to work when I realized that I was more interested in watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and 3-2-1 Contact than you were. Every child is different, so I don't really think that that's a fair question. Mm-hmm. I would say for anybody who has a newborn, sleep when that baby sleeps.
Good advice. What are your future wishes for our relationship?
Well, that I move in with you.
You know what?
That you don't send me to the nursing home. That
That's
I get to move in with you.
When Brandy sent these questions in, that's exactly what I replied. I said, her wish is that I don't put her in a nursing home.
Yeah.
What would you say was the best advice your mother gave you regarding parenting?
Mom never gave me advice. Mom's answer to my question when I would go to her seeking advice would be that she would not offer advice, because if she did and I took it and it didn't work out, then I would blame her for that. Now, that's what she said, but of course parents today would probably be jailed for this, but she did teach me how to stop you from biting. Because who was it? I don't remember which one of the grandkids now walked up behind her and bit her in the back of the leg, and she turned around and grabbed their arm and bit it, and they never bit again. Yeah. So when you did that to me, I bit you and you never bit me again.
That's awesome.
She really was not one to offer advice. And, and also, she truly lived by, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. There have been times where I thought, wow, I must really have upset her because she's not talking. Like, the worst thing Mom ever called anybody was a dink. And I'm like, oh my God, Mom is really upset. Dad, on the other hand, he had some more colorful language. But
that's like your sugar beets.
Yeah, sugar beets. It's just, yeah, I'm not real fond of the F word, but it's a noun, a verb, and it's everything now. It's just part of how people talk, and I just don't think it's very professional.
Yeah, it's definitely not attractive. What was your favorite thing about parenting me, and something you've learned from being my mom?
Well, you were really super easy to parent, which says more about you than it does about me, I think. But I think for me, what I learned through parenting you is that I needed to not take myself so seriously, because I had in my mind, and I think, people who don't have children probably have said, when I have kids, I'll never let them do that. Well, that's a bunch of hogwash, because you don't know what you're going to do until you're in that situation. But I feel that I was strict. I had rules. I laid out expectations, but yet, given your personality, I had to learn not to take myself so seriously, because some of those things just really aren't all that important. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you helped a lot in that regard. In the grand scheme of things, is it really that important kind of a thing. But
What moment made you most proud of me?
I mean, I don't know what most proud, but I get one of the first defining moments would have been when you were named like Citizen of the Year.
Yeah.
That was an accomplishment, and then it could also be a reflection of poor parenting skills on my part, because you did spend so much time with the rescue squad and the fire department, and learned some colorful language spending time with those firefighters. But you were exposed to a lot at a young age.
But I would say that it made me who I am and makes me really good at what I do.
But full transparency here, when I was most proud was when you passed second grade, because that was the year from hell. It was like, we couldn't get you out of bed to go to school. I don't think you liked your teacher. I mean, there was just so many things. She's the one who wanted you on 88 medication, and I'm like, the kid is smart. Your class is boring.
Yeah.
So, but it was just, that year was just a struggle. And then I thought, grade school. Actually, all of grade school was kind of a struggle. And I in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, oh, she's not successful in grade school. What's going to happen when she goes to high school? And it's going to be 7th graders with 12th graders. And, you know, there's going to be food fights in the lunchroom and all these other things. But problem getting you to go to school in grade school, you got into high school, you wouldn't miss a day. And I would have to tell you, Elisa, you have to stay home. You have a fever.
Yeah.
And your dad talked you into going to my college graduation because you didn't want to miss school for that. So, sorry. I was like,
I have a fever. Who cares? I'll hide it.
It's like, oh my, you are sick. You cannot go to school.
I just don't think I was challenged enough in elementary.
No, you weren't.
But that is one thing about me, though, is that if I am interested in something, I can give it as much energy as needed. But if it's something that bores me or I don't like, I'm like, eh.
I find it interesting that you said that, because that's how I am.
Yeah.
And it was pointed out to me by Troy, my boss.
Yeah.
He in fact, he had said it at one of our offsite meetings. He goes, you are either all in or all out. And I'm like, yeah. And then we took a personality type test, and there's no middle ground for me at all. I'm either way low or way high on scores. And that is, you always know these things, but you don't offer that information. But when somebody says it out loud, then you have to agree with that.
Those tests always freak me out, because you take them, and when you're answering the questions, they seem really benign. Mm-hmm. And you're like 4, 7, 2, 1. You're going through. And then at the end, it reads a descriptor and it sounds exactly like you.
Well, and it should, because you're the one who filled it out.
I know, but it's so weird that you can just take these random questions and write a definition of what you are. Yeah. It doesn't seem like it should be possible. I think I've got everything here. Unless you want to touch on how you got a call at work because I didn't go to daycare.
You were always treated more like an adult than a child when you were growing up. And that's pretty much in everything. I mean, with the vocabulary that was used, if you didn't know what it meant, I would explain it to you. So you just always more responsible. But so it would have been in 1991, because I had started college. And I had a night class, and while I was at night class, you and Bob were going to go look at some kittens. And when I got home that night, you had 2. I don't remember how long it was after we had the kittens, but I got a telephone call from the daycare provider saying, Elisa got off the bus, but she went home. She did not come over here. So, of course, I called you, because you would have been 8. I questioned why you didn't go to daycare, and you're like, I don't have to go to daycare. I'm like, well, you can't be home alone. Well, I'm not home alone. Oliver and Dickens were there, so the 2 kittens were your reason. We decided that, yes, you could go home. You had to call us at the store and let us know that you were home, but you were home for an hour and 15 minutes maybe before Bob got home. But it's like, yeah, well, she won't go to daycare anymore. She doesn't need to because she has 2 cats.
Yeah, being home alone and having the neighbor kids is how Kim broke the couch too.
Oh, yeah. That was hilarious.
We were running across the living room and jumping on the couch and flipping over the back. And one of the neighbor girls was over and she ran across the living room and jumped on the couch and all 4 legs snapped off. And everybody was horrified. They're like, your mom is going to be so upset. So they abandoned me. And she comes home from work and I'm like, Kim jumped on the couch and broke all the legs off. And she's like, what? Say it slower. And I'm like, Kim jumped on the couch and broke all the legs off. And Mom started laughing because apparently the legs had already been broke. Before. But it was a really funny moment.
So while you were telling that story, I thought of some advice for Brandy.
Okay.
Because remember, you weren't supposed to have kids in the house when you were alone.
Yes, yeah.
If any parent out there has children who sneak friends into their house, tell their child to tell their friends not to hide in Mom's closet. I think it was Scotty that hid in there. Yeah, it was like...
I know. My mom gets home from work. I'm like, shoot. And I'm like, hide. All of a sudden, she goes in her room to like relax after
Took
work.
my shoes off, put them away.
There he is. Bam, right in the closet. Well, and she had these. So my mom has an attention to detail that's second to none. And she had these dumb sheep that she would put on the coffee table, but they were fluffy and everyone wanted to touch them. And we thought every single time we had them back in the same spot, and my mom would go, who was over? It's like, oh, okay. Why'd you touch the sheep?
Okay, now that's not 100% true, though, regarding attention to detail, because your friend was over eating a bowl of cereal, and I thought she was you. I was like, hi, hon, how was your day?
That is true.
What was her name? I don't remember.
Okay, Michelle.
In my defense, you two did look
a
lot alike.
We looked almost identical, and she had
She answered. She didn't correct me.
She had her head in a bowl of cereal, and she did look like me. And I doubt you looked. You just walked in and probably peripheral. But when I came
was expecting you to.
When I came up from downstairs, Michelle goes, "Your mom thinks I'm you." I was like, well, okay.
I can't even identify my own child.
That's great. Anything else that you want to put out in the universe, Mom?
I think I put you out there, so I've done my job.
I love it. That, my friends, is a wrap on this very special Mother's Day edition of Dippy Does It All. Huge thanks to my mom, Jane, for sharing her stories, her love, and her sacred mom wisdom with us today. From underwear checks, impromptu concerts, and to rhetorical questions that got real answers, there's no denying this woman has survived a lot. To everyone who's sending questions, you made this episode truly magical, hilarious, and a little chaotic, just like motherhood itself. We appreciate you. If you're lucky enough to still have your mom around, give her a call, send that text, or better yet, show up with her favorite snacks. And if this day is hard for you, please know I see you and I'm sending you a big, cheesy, heartfelt hug. Don't forget to rate, review, and share this episode with someone who needs a laugh or a reminder that moms really do it all. Until next time, keep it curious, keep it chaotic, and tell your mom you love her. Happy Mother's Day.